Hi everyone, my name is Ryan. I play in a band called Unflesh. Today I wanted to do a bit of a song tutorial for you guys. The song is The Vast Forest of Impaled Cadavers. It's the second track off our second full-length album called Inhumation. Basically, my goal with this video is to give you guys some songwriting ideas or strategies that hopefully will inspire some new ideas of your own. The song was composed for a very specific reason as it pertains to the album. Most of the songs were already written by this point, but the album needed an opener. With this opener, I had a couple of ideas or concepts that I've always wanted to use in a song. So the first strategy I would mention to you guys, it's basically very parameter focused, having some set goals before you start working on the song. The first thing that I wanted to do was create a song that had a continuous motif hidden in almost every riff, in other sections, other keys, different rhythms, stuff like this. The other thing was I wanted it to be only Hungarian minor. That's basically your harmonic minor scale, but with a raised fourth. So you have that chromatic line going on. Line itself that I was just mentioning is just kind of this. That's kind of embedded in every section of this song. These two parameters really helped me get over this sort of rut of, okay, I want to write an opener, but okay, what's next? So having these parameters can definitely help, I think. So this could be something that you could use with your songwriting, is maybe set a few parameters. That way it eliminates this idea of starting from scratch, a blank page. You know, nobody likes that feeling. It's very overwhelming. So there you go. There's the first strategy. So it's important to note this song, as well as all the Unflesh material, is tuned a whole step down on 7-string. So it's basically D standard with a low A string. So first things first, let's start with the intro. The intro sounds like this. Okay guys, so let's break down this section. Basically what's happening here is we're not deviating too much from the chord progression itself. You'll notice that it's a lot of triads happening here, right? So like, I'm just going to refer to this in standard tuning for visual purposes. You have D minor here, right, in the first guitar. All that it's playing is the root minor third and the fifth. If you look closely at the second guitar part, the harmony, basically it's just a counterpoint arpeggio thing happening against the first guitar, right? So not changing too much of the triad here. I think what kind of makes this part work is we have these dynamic changes, which I think is really important in this section, right? So we have a lot of these chords ringing out, and then every once in a while, another guitar will come in with a palm mute over a ringing chord. It's sometimes really cool. I personally like kind of mixing articulations, I guess, like that. Bring in some other techniques, right? In measure 3, in the higher guitar part, we actually see the first appearance or hint at that motif I was mentioning earlier with this Hungarian minor scale. We have the root 5th fret of the E string, and then we're moving flat 6, 5, and then flat 5. But that's all with the tremolo picking over a ringing chord again, right? So we're mixing a lot of stuff up here in terms of the playing. Measure 4, we have a F minor chord, still kind of moving only within a triad, right? So it's only F, A flat, and C that's appearing in this whole measure. But I think it is really in terms of the execution. Again, we have a ringing chord, then we have some pull-offs and palm muting in the other guitar. We have a repeat of the first measure here. This section appears a lot in the song, this sort of main theme, and basically it's very intentional to bring that back into the song over and over again. It's kind of what I wanted the listener to kind of remember. In measure 6 and 7, 6 is going to be the same as measure 2, but in measure 7 we see some more chord movement here. So we have A flat to A, D minor to D flat minor. Again though, still sticking with the triads, so went a little too crazy with the triads here, I think. Still mixing articulations, right? So that might be something that you'll want to experiment with if you're writing for 2 guitar parts, just kind of mixing up, throwing palm mutes in one guitar, the other guitar is doing something completely different. As far as the rhythms, we're going pretty hefty on the 8th notes. Try mixing other rhythms together, kind of getting into this counterpoint idea of straight 8th notes and then triplet 8th notes on top. It kind of sounds really cool, especially with a blast beat. Measure 14, we're going to get into this F minor chord again, and then the ending of this section, which is totally new here, what we haven't seen so far. So measure 15, we have the A flat to F minor doubled in octaves, the whole chord, and playing the exact same articulation, so letting the notes ring. Moving it to E minor, covering the whole measure there. And then we're adding in some chords here. Suspended D chord, and then back to the D minor chord. And then we have this sort of D, F, C sharp, D, C sharp, F here. And then we return to the D minor chord here. But one thing really important to point out, measure 17 to 20, I actually will use later on in the song to use it as sort of a vehicle to transition into other sections, but using the same key, but kind of connecting everything together. So it's not like going from section to section, there's nothing to relate back to. So that might be another strategy that you could, experiment with, maybe these 2, 3, or 4 measure little rhythmic ideas with specific melodic content, and then you can actually use that to transition into other sections in the song you're writing. So the second strategy I would recommend is using a chord progression as kind of an outline, right? So like thinking about a set chord progression and then writing riffs within it, right? So kind of gives you a roadmap melodically of where you could take the riff, apply it to different keys, things like this. For example, if you had like A minor to B7 and then to E minor, you could just use the triad of each to kind of mess around with a riff that you like, Could be anything like that. So that's a really useful strategy as well to kind of get the ball rolling on your riff writing. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. I'm going to be posting more sections of the song in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that if you enjoyed the video. I am offering guitar lessons online through Zoom. If you'd like to work on technique or any sort of songwriting or anything like that, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll leave the email in the description of this video. Until then, see you next time. Thank you.